Why elephant and hyena live far from people. An inquisitive boy once asked his grandmother why elephants and hyenas live so far away from people. He thought that this might be because the elephant was so large and needed great empty places in which to roam. As for hyena, the boy thought that he might live far away from people because he was an animal who liked to wander at night and needed quiet paths for his wandering. The grandmother listened to what the boy said and shook her head. She knew the answer to his questions, which she'd been told many years before. Now she told the boy. There was a great chief once. He had many fields, and there were lots of people who lived on his lands. After the rains had come and made the ground wet, the people would prepare their oxen for ploughing. Then they would cut into the soft ground, and the children would put in lines of seeds. More rains would come, and the seeds would grow into tall plants with heavy ears of corn. There were people who lived near a river in that chief's land, and they planted their fields carefully, and all about their new plants they built fences made out of sticks and pieces of thorn tree. No cow would dare to wander into these fields and eat the plants, as the thorns at the edge would tear into her skin. For this reason the plants grew tall, and the people would all think of the delicious corn that would soon be cooking in their pots. One morning, one of the boys who looked after the plants saw that a great hole had been torn through the fence of thorns. He ran into the field and cried out as he saw the damage that had been done to the plants. Where there had been rows of corn, there now only flattened stalks and scattered leaves. This boy's father wept when he saw what had happened. "Now we shall have no food," he said, picking up the broken stalk of the tallest plant. "We shall be hungry this year." That afternoon they rebuilt the fence, hoping that it would stop the creature from visiting their fields at night. The next morning, though, the creature had been again, making a large hole in the fence of thorns and eating up more plants than before. Everybody in the village wept that day. In another part of that chief's land, there were other people who also felt sad. They had a great field of pumpkins, also protected by a fence of thorns. By night, some creature of great cunning had burrowed underneath the fence and eaten many pumpkins. There were still some pumpkins left, but they knew that if the creature visited them again, then all their pumpkins would be gone. For those people who ate only pumpkins, this was a terrible thing to happen. When they heard of the misfortune of the people who had lived by the river, the pumpkin people walked across to the houses by the river and held a meeting. "We have lost almost all our corn," said the river people. "A great creature pushed through our fence of thorns as if it were nothing." The pumpkin people nodded and said, "That creature must be an elephant. Only an elephant could do that." Then they told the river people what had happened to their field of pumpkins, and the river people nodded their heads and said, "That must be a hyena. Only a hyena would have the cunning to dig his way under a fence of thorns." There were some animals who heard the people talking in this way, and they heard the sad voices of the men and saw the place where the tears had fallen on the ground. These animals who had kind hearts were saddened, and they went off into the bush and told the other animals about what had happened. Even some birds heard the story and began to sing sad songs about it. Of course, it was not long before the elephant and the hyena heard what was being said about them. All the other animals now said that they were wicked and that they should not have caused so much sadness to the growers of the crops. The elephant felt ashamed when he realized what the other animals were saying about him, so he went to see the hyena. "Everybody is calling us evil," he said. "They shake their heads when they mention our names and say that there is enough food for everybody without our stealing the food off other people." The hyena felt ashamed too, and he lowered his head to the ground and howled through his yellow teeth. "I do not like to think of my name being so bad," he said to the elephant. "Let's go to the chief and ask him to change our names." The elephant thought that this was a good idea. Once he was no longer called an elephant, then he would be able to hold his head up again among the other animals. "We shall set off early tomorrow morning," he said to the hyena. "It's a long way to that chief's house, and we shall need all day to travel." The next morning the two friends set off just as the first light of the sun came over the top of the hills. They walked through the bush all morning and stopped only for a short time at midday. Throughout the afternoon they walked, following the path that led to the chief's village, watching the sun go slowly down in the sky. At last, just as the sun sank and the first of the stars began to glimmer above them, they saw the fire of the chief's village. The chief's messenger welcomed them at the entrance to the village. He had heard of the bad name of the elephant and the hyena, but because they were visitors to the chief, he did not show his feelings about them. "We have come to have our names changed," explained the hyena, his red eyes glowing in the darkness. The chief's messenger listened politely and then said, "I'm sorry, but it's too late for the chief to change your names. He can do that tomorrow morning when it is light, and he can see what he is doing. I shall get some boys to show you to your sleeping quarters for the night." A tall boy came and took the elephant to a place where he was to sleep. Because he was so large, this had to be in a field. The boy wished the elephant a good night, and then he took the hyena to his place. Not being so large, the hyena was able to sleep in a hut, and was given the skin of a water buck with which to cover himself. "At night there were only stars in the sky," said the boy. "At night there are only stars in the sky," said the boy. "You will need this skin to keep you warm." The hyena thanked him and settled down in the corner of the hut and began to cover himself with the skin. The boy closed the door of the hut and went back to the chief's messenger. "Our guests have gone to bed," he said. "Good," said the messenger. "They can speak to the chief when the sun comes up, and he can change their names then. That will make them happy." Just before the first light of morning, the hyena crept out of his hut and made his way down to the elephant's sleeping field. He walked low down, his head drooped, as if he was sneaking away in shame, just the way all hyenas walk. Standing in the field, waiting for his friend, the elephant also had his head lowered, his tusks almost touching the ground. "I'm very ashamed of myself," the elephant said. "Even before Hyena could wish him a good morning, they put me in this field of corn to sleep, and during the night I ate it all." The hyena looked at the field. It was covered with stalks of felled plants, as if a great wind had blown upon it during the night. "I'm also ashamed," he said to the elephant. "They gave me a skin last night to cover myself, and I ate it all up. Only the end of its tail is left." The two bad friends were now too ashamed to go before the chief and ask him to change their names. Instead, they ran into the bush and found places far from people where they could live. They were still called elephant and hyena, and all the other animals still said bad things about these names. That is why the elephant and the hyena lived far away.